After Julio Rodriguez dominated the position player stats today, will we see something similar, Colton? What do you think? Did the
I don't think
community
so.
pick the same guy every single time?
I don't think they pick the same guy every single time, but I do think the community may be wrong.
Oh, another hot take. You don't like the community with these ones. We're starting with strikeouts. Who will lead the Mariners in strikeouts in 2023? 56% of the vote voted for Luis Castillo, which is not right. Robbie Ray at 24%, George Kirby at 13%, and Logan Gilbert, aka Walter, at 7%. Colton, what are the biggest problems here with this first poll?
I understand that Luis Castillo is the ace, but I mean, in my opinion, he's never been a huge strikeout guy. He plays really well, especially with a good defense behind him. Robbie Ray, his biggest strength is his strikeout numbers.
Correct.
Robbie Ray struck out. I mean, people will say how bad of a season he had last year, but Robbie Ray still led the team in strikeouts. And so, especially if he can kind of return to form this year, Robbie Ray is going to lead the team in strikeouts. He's a guy who strikes out 200 every year.
Yeah.
So.
Fangraphs agrees with your sentiment there that Robbie Ray will lead the team in strikeouts at 220 over 191 innings pitched, whereas Luis Castillo is second. He's going to have 206 strikeouts over 195 innings pitched, so you can kind of see the difference there. Your answer's Robbie?
Yeah.
My answer is also Robbie. Fangraphs is Robbie. We have defeated the community, finally. Yes! It took Julio Rodriguez not being in these polls, even though you guys asked for it every single time. Up next, who will lead the Mariners in wins? A team stat, not even a pitching stat, if you will. I'm adding you, Brian Kenny. Luis Castillo took the vote in this one again at 61%. George Kirby second at 20%. Logan Gilbert 14%. And Robbie Ray at 5%. How do you feel about that?
Where's Marco? Overall, I agree. I think I might lean towards Kirby here just because I feel like he is super consistent. I feel like George Kirby is one of the most consistent starters in baseball, but it's also, I mean, it's a crapshoot. Who knows? I mean, it all depends on how the offense plays that day.
Yeah.
Like Felix Fernandez. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He should have over 200 wins, but he played for the Seattle Mariners in the 2010 era.
Correct.
So
Logan Gilbert led the team in wins last year. I mean, the year before was Chris Flexen, I believe. So, yeah, wins can kind of be a crapshoot. You know, you have to kind of take into account who's going to start the most games, I would say, and kind of go from there. George Kirby, I don't know if I agree with your sentiment. He's probably not going to start 32 games like guys like Castillo, Gilbert, and Ray will. I'm aligning with the community. I would go Luis Castillo here as well. I've got him lining up for a top 5 Cy Young finish in my book. I think I projected him to have 18 wins in my personal projection. I know. I know. And Fangraphs also has him and Robbie Ray tied. Count this as a half vote for Robbie Ray and Luis Castillo. So we got 2.5, a half, and then 1 for George Kirby. So Luis Castillo is leading the Mariners in wins. You heard it here first. Now coming off the wins here, we're into starter ERA, and Luis Castillo once again wins the vote. Him and Julio Rodriguez are the fan favorites. It seems like 61% of you guys voted for Luis Castillo, 28% for George Kirby. I think George Kirby is definitely setting himself up to be like the second favorite Mariners pitcher on this staff for sure. And then Logan Gilbert at 9%, and then Marco at 2%. Everyone was flaming me for including Marco in a poll. God forbid I wanted to get him in one poll. Where's Robbie Ray? Guys, there's only 4 options when I do a poll like this. I'm sorry. Robbie Ray was never going to lead this category anyways. It was always going to be Luis Castillo. That's my vote as well.
I agree with Luis Castillo. I could see Castillo with a low 2 ERA. Low 3. Low 2. Oh my, is this 2014 Felix Fernandez?
My goodness.
With a low 3 ERA, maybe like 3.15 or something like that.
Yeah.
The Mariners are going to rely heavily on their bullpen. That's just how the team is constructed. And so if Castillo has a good, gives them a good 6 innings, they're going to probably go to, Brash or Sewald or just whatever pocket they're at in the lineup. So overall, I think Castillo, he's not going to have too many blow-up innings. Robbie Ray, we know, always has that one blow-up inning. So I agree with that. Obviously, Marco always has a blow-up start every start.
The first inning.
Yeah, the first inning. And then George and Logan, I think, are both pretty safe bets. I do think that at the end of the year, George Kirby will be ranked higher overall than Logan Gilbert, in my opinion. I think Gilbert's probably like a 3. I think Kirby can be a high 2. So
yeah, in terms of like their ranks in the rotation for sure.
Yeah.
Fangraphs agrees here. We've got Luis Castillo at a 3.33 ERA for the projection. I agree with you. I could see it in like the 3.1 area. A lot of the other ones here, like George Kirby at 3.58. I don't think that's a bad projection. I could see it being a little bit lower, but I could also maybe see it creeping to like the 3.7 area, depending on like if people are figuring out how much he stays around the zone. But overall, Fangraphs are a little bit more conservative with these projections here, so don't take them as, gospel, because they're likely not going to be right. We find ourselves in uncharted territory here where we have to go through an entirely different pool of players. Unlike the position players, we've got two separate parts for pitchers. Reliever ERA. Who will lead the Mariners in reliever ERA? You guys voted for Andres Munoz, not surprising, at 66% of the clip there, 16% for Matt Brash, 13% for Paul Sewald, and then Penn Murphy, only 5%. Show some love to the Penn.
I think I agree with this overall. I mean, Andres Munoz is obviously reliever favorite for the Mariners. I mean, I think Matt Brash is a good one, and I think I could really see him playing up out of the bullpen this year.
Yeah.
But overall, Andres Munoz is a guy who you're using at the most important parts of the game, whether it be, the Yordan Alvarez part of the lineup, or, I mean, even overall, Andres Munoz is one of the best pitchers in the Mariners organization, so the community got this one right.
Yeah, for sure. Fangraphs agrees here as well, though. Munoz at 2.39 ERA. Really low ERA there. Great to see. Brash, 3.15. I could see that. Like, low threes, maybe like in the high twos if he's like on the, the better side of that coin there. But overall, we see a Taylor Saucedo. Shout out here. 22 games, 3.49, ahead of Paul Sewald. I don't know. I could see Sewald having lower than that 3.5, but
yeah.
Fangraphs, community, us. So 4-0 sweep for Andres Munoz. Now, a pretty controversial one, I think, in this one. Who will lead the Mariners in saves in 2023? Now, I'm sure you're going to have some opinions on this, and I'm probably going to agree with them. But Andres Munoz, once again, wins this vote at 66%. It's a popularity contest at this point. Paul Sewald at 23%, Matt Brash at 7%, and then Diego Castillo, the big boss, at 4%.
Overall, I hope Andres Munoz doesn't lead the team in saves, because if he does, the way they're utilizing the bullpen is different than they have been over the past couple of years. They, especially now with the 3-batter minimum for relievers, I think that using Andres Munoz, you need, like they've talked about, using them in pockets. So if you're facing the middle of the order, you're going to want to use Andres Munoz. And if that comes up in the 8th, you're going to use Andres Munoz there instead of saving him for the 9th to face the 7, 8, 9 hitters. Whereas maybe you utilize Sewald or Diego in that spot against the 7, 8, 9 hitters. So overall, it really depends on where it falls in the lineup for the Mariners. And if the 3, 4, 5 are up in the 9th, then sure, Andres Munoz will come in. But otherwise, I feel like it's going to be, if I had to pick, I'd say Sewald. I feel like he is the quote-unquote de facto closer unless it is the middle of the order.
Yeah, it's like it's a big if-then statement. If it's not the middle of the order, then Paul Sewald. If it is the middle of the order, it's Andres Munoz. And I agree with you. I think it will be Paul Sewald as well. And Fangraphs helps us defeat the community once again. We've got 20 saves as the projection for Paul Sewald. I think that's what he finished with last year as well. So Fangraphs, me and you, we got Paul Sewald. You guys picked Andres Munoz. Now, don't get us wrong. If Andres Munoz is at the back end of the bullpen and he's getting the saves, they kind of change how their mindset goes. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. However, I would be a little bit more worried about the opportunities for those pockets you were talking about and guys that are pitching in those. If they feel like Brash is up to the challenge, if they feel like Diego Castillo's doing a bit better this year, it kind of all depends on like where it's shaping up at. But Paul Sewald, he's going to be more than likely finishing out the games there. And now we've got a conglomerate stat here for the Mariners. We're going to combine the starters and the relievers into one poll. It's ERA plus. Colton, this poll was close. 39% of the vote goes to Andres Munoz. He wins the poll. La Piedra, Luis Castillo finishes second at 30%. George Kirby at 24%, which is actually a little bit closer than I expected for third here. And then Matt Brash at 7%. We tried to go balance, go 2-2 here. What are your thoughts on Munoz winning this ERA plus poll?
Overall, I agree with it. I do think Andres Munoz will win the ERA plus poll. That does not mean he's going to be the Mariners' best pitcher. However, we were just talking about it with Eric Swanson. He had a 2.20 ERA plus in the year of 2021. Casey Sadler had like a 600 something ERA plus. So the fact that relievers, they pitch so few innings compared to starting pitchers, their ERA plus is going to be inflated because of that. So if someone like Andres Munoz has a great year again, what was he at last year? Like
he was like 150 something.
150 something. So, and La Piedra was at like 125 or something like that.
117 for ERA
117.
yeah.
So it's like ERA plus is kind of a crapshoot when it comes. You can really only compare relievers to relievers or starting pitchers to starting pitchers in that regard for that very reason. Relievers pitch so few innings. So I'm going to have to go with Andres Munoz, but I do think overall Luis Castillo will be the better pitcher.
You're a coward. I'm going Luis Castillo. Justin Verlander had a 2.20 ERA plus last year in his Cy Young 18-4, 1.75 ERA. I think not that good, but I think, Castillo can get into like the 180s if he's got, like I'm thinking, a top 5 Cy Young finish.
Now, we know that the community picked some different players here, and the Fangraphs projections for the Mariners rotation as well as their bullpen was something interesting. They kind of disrespected the Mariners pitching staff. We have that video on the screen now. We appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.